Shadow Secretary of State Alex Burghart.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I'd like to congratulate the Right Honourable Gentleman for securing this debate. I should say at the outset the Conservatives support this motion. And the truth is that the people who helped Jeffrey Epstein, who helped him by supplying him with contacts and information, were the people who enabled him to become powerful. And those people effectively enabled him to build his net of influence, his net of abuse. And that network of power, in turn, enabled him to abuse more and more people. So it is quite right that this House is enabled to scrutinise what went on and how it went on. I listened to the Minister's remarks, and I appreciate the way that he's approached this debate and the way that the government is going to constructively cooperate with the terms of the address. But I must say that this is the second occasion in only a few weeks when the government has had to be brought here by opposition parties under the terms of a humble address to disclose information that it could quite obviously have disclosed without the need for a humble address in the first place. And so whilst I accept the humility with which he's taken the debate, actually the government as a whole could have been much more proactive on this issue right from the start. And I also appreciate the humble way in which he came to the House and reminded us that he had been right all along. Very humble. The Right Honourable Gentleman, the leader of the Liberal Democrats, referred to this as the first global political scandal. And indeed it is a global political scandal that has reached its tendrils into the operation of many governments across the West and indeed the East. And the fact that our allies in Poland have launched an intelligence investigation into Epstein's links with Russia, the fact that in the published Epstein papers it's clear that Jeffrey Epstein was supplying people at the very top end of Putin's regime with sensitive information about the American leadership, shows that this is an international scandal, and one in which our government and our security services must play their part in uncovering things. I know that the Right Honourable Gentleman is a lover of history, so I must gently take issue with his claims that this is the first global political scandal. I think the Dreyfus affair, the XYZ scandal, the Panama scandal, there have been many, but this is, to take a substantive point, a global political scandal. And I'd very much like to associate myself with the remarks made by my honourable friend from Strangford, that we can only be, as a general point, very supportive of the royal family's role in promoting our country. I think those people who have witnessed the best of the royal family using its awesome soft power to support what we do best can only be in awe of the vast commitment it makes to public service and to the life of the country. And indeed, if it is the case, as reported in the press, that very senior members of the royal family expressed concerns about Mr. Mountbatten-Windsor's appointment in 2001, one can only feel enormous sympathy with them about what has subsequently come to light. Because these revelations surrounding the relationship between Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor and Jeffrey Epstein, just as with the relationship between Peter Mandelson and Jeffrey Epstein, and the arrest of both men on suspicion of misconduct in public office, make it right that questions are asked and make it right that information is brought before this House. I mean, if one looks back to 2001, it is possible to identify the hand of Epstein in Mr. Mountbatten-Windsor's appointment. It is reported that Peter Mandelson first met Epstein in the summer of 2001. Mountbatten-Windsor had first met Epstein, I believe, in 1999. And shortly after Mandelson's first meeting in October 2001, Mandelson is appointed as trade envoy. The minister shakes his head. I'll go through the chronology again for him because it's there's no harm. Mandelson met Epstein. Hansard will reply. It may be that the numbers were juggled up in the minister's head. That in the summer of 2001, Mandelson met Epstein for the first time, And in October 2001, Mountbatten-Windsor was appointed as trade envoy. And so it's possible that Mandelson influenced. Now, what I also said is that in 1999, Mountbatten-Windsor met Epstein for the first time, so he was already an associate of Epstein. So I'm glad to have that sorted out. I can go through it again, but I'm sure the Minister can read about it tomorrow. I'm happy to give way to the Honourable Lady.
Very grateful to the Shadow Minister for giving way. I think by sketching out that timeline, I think that brings to light the reason why in our humble address we are calling for information in relation to the actual creation of the appointment, which the Minister rightly pointed out was a unique role that was created for Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor. Does he therefore agree with me that we are right to not only call out that creation of the role, but also to ascertain whether Mandelson had any role within it?
No, very much so. And as I say, what would have been better is if the government had been proactive on this and had not had to be brought to the House by opposition parties in order to release this information. And I'm very glad that the Liberal Democrats have learnt the lesson of the Conservatives' humble address a few weeks ago, that it's always good that once the Conservatives have, designed a bandwagon, got it up and running, showed that it can move at high speed, the Liberal Democrats scramble up and get on board. But, better late than never. And so, is anybody trying? No, fine. So as we see, if we go through the sequencing very carefully, it's possible that there was influence from Epstein, who we must acknowledge was not had not been arrested or convicted in 2001, but about whom there were rumours and reports, and who in any case was a highly influential foreign businessman. And if it was under his influence that Mr Mountbatten-Windsor was appointed as trade envoy, then it would be useful to see what the Prime Minister knew when that appointment was made. I will give way to the Honourable Lady.
Giving way. I think what he's trying to get to is a point that deeply concerns me, which is we need to understand the extent to which the then Prince Andrew was leaning on government for things that he wanted. And an example of this is in the recent Epstein files. There is an exchange between Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein, about how Andrew had written to the Ministry of Defence in order to allow their plane to land at an RAF base in Norfolk on the 7th of December in 2000. So his influence on government predated his appointment. And what we want to understand is to what extent was he already trying to influence government as a prince, and what did that lead to in his role as a trade envoy? Would he agree that that is incredibly important to get to the bottom of?
Yes, and I'm afraid I don't know what year 2000. Well, I agree with her, that's an interesting point, although I think if one looks at the precise wording of the Liberal Democrat humble address, something like that might not fall within its context. So, she may wish to table an amendment to her own party's humble address in order to get at that. But transparency is essential in all of this, and that's why on this side of the House we very much hope that the government will give us transparency quickly. And I turn to the point that my right honourable friend, Father of the House, made, that there is a danger that the government uses a police process as a means of not disclosing certain information. And I say that not because of what the Minister has said today, so much as what was said yesterday by the Right Honourable gentleman who is Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister, when in context of our own humble address, he said, "I can confirm that those documents will be made available, subject, I am afraid, to the exclusion of one particular item, in which number 10 asked Peter Mandelson a number of questions. The Met Police have asked that to be held back, subject to their investigations. That item will therefore have to be published at a later date, but the documents that are not subject to the Met Police investigation will be published very shortly." I think it would assist this House if, I think this was a point that my honourable friend from Northamptonshire made, it would assist this House if the government could explain why the Met Police have asked that that item is held back. And I also think it would be helpful if the government would confirm that there is no bar to it handing that document over to the ISC. And this is a point on which the Chair has been very clear. On the 4th of February, Mr Speaker said, the Metropolitan Police have no jurisdiction over this House. have no jurisdiction over what this House may wish to do. It will be a matter of whether or not the government provide the information. I want to let members know that the police cannot dictate to this House. That the police cannot dictate to this House. And there is a means that was specifically debated during the original humble address, which enabled members of this House, i.e. the ISC, to be given this information regardless of a police investigation. Happy to give way to the Honourable Lady.
I thank the honourable member for giving way in what is a very important point that he is making, and something which concerns me deeply in this is that my constituents, members of the public, are increasingly concerned that what they see is the tendrils that the honourable gentleman referred to reaching into government through this debate, and that in the handling of these papers and the release of information, we must at all times be aware of the impact on the reputation, not just on Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor or Lord Mandelson, but on us in this place, previous governments and subsequent governments in Parliament. Would the honourable member agree?
Very much so. And I know that I know that honourable members, or certain honourable members on all sides, will be aware of just how bad it will look if the government does not provide information swiftly as possible. I'll give an example where that is not happening, given that the original humble address was nearly 2 weeks ago. Now, during that debate, I raised the issue of Palantir and how in February last year the Prime Minister had an unrecorded meeting with Palantir in Washington, didn't appear in his register of meetings. He was accompanied on that visit by Peter Mandelson. Peter Mandelson, whose company in which he held a commanding share, had Palantir as a client. And then subsequently, later in the year, Palantir received a direct award from government worth about £240 million. A very substantial contract. When I raised this in the House, there was concern on both sides, it was a cross-party issue, and the Minister agreed to write to me confirming, or I asked him to confirm, that the Cabinet Secretary, whoever that turned out to be, would be investigating what is clearly looks like a case of conflict of interest. I still have not received a reply. I've not received any reply, despite me bringing it up again at the dispatch box at the start of this week and being assured that I would receive a response. I just don't think that this is good enough. And it's very, very important that the opposition can hold the government to account in a meaningful way. So to the honourable lady's point, I think it's extremely important that the government should be seen to be willingly providing information rather than having to be pushed every step of the way to do the right thing. And I'll just sort of make an additional point on this score. And whilst we do very much support the humble address today, I just ask the government to be clear that nothing in this humble address is going to slow down the process of delivering on the original humble address. Nothing at all. Because whilst there is historic interest and contemporary interest in the history of what happened in 2001, what this government did in choosing to appoint Peter Mandelson, despite the information that it had at its disposal, is of paramount importance. This government must come clean, and come clean quickly, because, as Buckingham Palace said the other day, no one is above the law.